a very special guest, coaching icon, Dr. Patrick Williams. Pat is a psychologist turned executive coach. He's a philanthropist and an educator. He is also known as the Indiana Jones of the Interior. He is one of the original founders of the International Coaching Federation, which I find to be very fascinating. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. And we're just happy to have you here. You're going to be able to teach us a lot of stuff about the coaching industry. And I know several of my coaching friends watch our show. So I'm excited to have you here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. And let's dive in. So tell us about your journey from psychologist to transformational life coach.
Yeah, well, diving in. Yeah. So somehow my life meaning early on became how do I understand people who live their life more purposely, live beyond mediocrity? And I questioned that or delved into that as a teenager. I think because I had some experiences that taught me I was a better leader and motivator than I was an athlete. Like I was okay, but I was on the bench.
Right.
I wasn't a starter. I did letter and pole vaulting, but you don't take that with you to college. So then I studied psychology in college, not to become a psychologist, but to just keep learning what made people tick louder. And what I mean by that metaphor is what makes some people live way beyond settling for just life, live their best. And then I studied the humanistic psychology as a master's and transpersonal psychology as a doctorate way before that was, so that was altered states of consciousness and East-West philosophy and yoga and mindfulness and biofeedback and meditation and all that woogity boogity stuff, as my daughter says. And now it's coming back where we have neuroscience showing us why that stuff
matters.
Was 3,000 years old, some of it. So then I found out as a psychologist, which I became, I felt like a sheep in wolf's clothing, not the other way around. I was pretending to be a psychologist, pretending to somebody who knew the answers to depression, post-traumatic stress, and I was trained, but I really saw myself more as a coach. And I didn't use that term, but I felt with adolescents and especially with men, they don't want to see us shrink, right?
Sure, right.
Well, then I heard about the coaching movement. I started coaching executives in 1990 as part of my psychology practice, Hewlett Packard, Kodak, IBM, et cetera. But then the ICF conference came about, which I showed up at. We can talk more about that.
Yeah.
And I just fell head over heels, jumped in 6 months later, closed my psychology practice, coached for 30 years, and started a coaching school and sold it. And so I have gray hair because I've been around a long while.
So let's talk about, my coaching friends are going to want to know this. I just recently finished enough hours to get my certification, my other certification through ICF. I have my certification through Coach Training Alliance, one of the coaching schools, right. Which is accredited through ICF or whatever. But let's talk about getting credited and getting certified, because I know there are a lot of people out there who call themselves a coach, who say that they are an expert, and I'm not going to discredit anybody.
Right.
But when I was going into coaching, I leaned on a coach, and she said, you don't have to be, but I highly recommend certification. And I felt like, I feel like just to have that piece of paper or that knowledge or that experience from other coaches and learning from each other and the interaction in the classroom would benefit me as a coach as I moved into this business for myself, right? So tell me why you think certification is important, what the ICF certification does for us, and how it kind of works in the coaching industry, because I think a lot of people are missing a message there.
Well, I'm glad you used the word important, because it's important but not necessary. I mean, if you look at the people like Marshall Goldsmith and others, they're not ICF certified, but they led a path of credibility. Coaching isn't a licensable term, so anybody can call themselves a coach. That's both good and bad.
Right.
So if you start to attract clients and they look at your website or your LinkedIn page, it's nice to know you've got some credibility, and I think that's where the certification comes in.
Yeah.
The ICF has come a long way. I mean, there were times actually when I helped create the board certified coach, another designation. It wasn't to conflict with the ICF. It was to make the entry level for coaching better. because 750 hours of coaching, which is what used to be required for the
A
PCC,
lot.
now it's 500. It's a lot when most coaches have trouble getting clients right away.
Right.
But now the ICF is standing out there, I think, as a beacon of research and data and connection. And I'm really proud of what they've done. I was a founding member of the ICF at the conference in 1995 and one of the first 24 MCCs. Now, why was I an MCC? Because I'd coached for 10 hours a week for 5 years for
already
an HR firm with the title executive coach. And I trained at Coach U, and I took CTI. I took some stuff elsewhere, lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Nowadays, and then my school, the Institute for Life Coach Training, was the 12th school. Now there's thousands.
Yes.
Schools.
Yes.
So I think credentialing is more important probably for you, the coach,
right,
than it is for your clients. Although when your clients look at you at 2 o'clock in the morning, who is this person?
Yeah.
It's nice to know why you can call yourself a coach. And some organizations are requiring certification to be hired in the corporate or C-suite level.
That's interesting that you say that, because I, up until recently, had focused. I came from a corporate background. And when I went into coaching, I was like, I don't want to go back into a corporate background. I had a bad taste in my mouth for a little while, and it was just time for me to like step back. So I went into, transformational coaching and parenting and coaching women who were going through life transformation and all that kind of stuff. And I did, fairly well there. But after I wrote my book and it came out, a friend of mine read it and was like, you need to come to my office and you need to start talking about foundations of relationships to my team so we can have better relationships with our clients. And it just kind of snowballed a little bit. And so now, especially now during this pandemic, I'm being contacted and contracted by corporations to have these conversations with their teams. And I think part of the reason why they're leaning on me is because of the certification. It's like, oh, you actually got a certification in this and you have the experience and you have a corporate background and you know how this stuff works, kind of thing. So thank you for, not confirming it, but for your information and your belief on it, because I think, it's an important thing.
Yeah, I think for me, my newest program, I turned 70 this year and I've coached for 30 years. I don't coach that much anymore. I volunteer. Yeah. I do discounted coaching to Navy SEALs organizations. I coach prisoners who are getting out. There's a lot of long stories about that. But I do mentor other coaches, and I do still teach at a couple of coaching schools. But my program that I created called Conscious Living Mastery is because of all my 40 years of doing this work. I want coaches and consultants and therapists and helping professionals to know we have to be sure we're smoothing out our own rough edges before we can be authentically present with our clients. Doesn't mean you need 7 years of psychoanalysis in the New York City way, right?
Right.
But
right.
Allen,
we need that.
But we do need to be aware of life happens to us. And during this COVID-19 moment.
I like to call it a moment.
Oh God, this moment. Yeah, long moment.
It's a long moment.
The things are exaggerated. So coaches are also feeling a little angst, a little emptiness, a little, heart emptiness. And if you're going to coach clients, you got to take care of that. So you need to express your emotions, be aware of your emotions. And there's so much I could say about that. The neuroscience of emotions today, emotions need to come back into coaching. It's not psychotherapy. Yep. They just need to be expressed, allowed, listened to, and then emotion, energy, and motion is energy shifts. Right. That's what it means.
Right.
I hope that rambling made sense.
It makes complete, well, to me, it makes perfect sense. Right. No, and I think it makes sense for a lot of people. I think that, as I'm going through and connecting with people, especially right now during this pandemic, authenticity has always been very important to me. It's not about the numbers. It's not about the followers. It's not about the amount of people who go to my website. It really is, like you said, being able to share our own personal experiences and helping other people feel comfortable sharing theirs allows them to grow. And right now, validating feelings, this is like the number one thing I'm talking about a lot and a lot of my webinars is everybody's feelings matter all the time. And we have to figure out how to, I'm going to ask you this because I want to know your trick or your tool, but we have to be ready and willing to acknowledge that for not just ourselves, But for the people, like I'm in quarantine with my husband and my 2 kids, and I'm usually with them a lot, but not this much. And there's a lot of stuff going on,
Yeah.
right? There's school and there's 2 full-time working parents, and there's,
Yeah.
socially distant play dates that we're trying to have for our kids so they don't go bonkers during this whole thing.
Right.
But it's all very important that, if you need a moment to cry, I will sit and I will understand this with you, and I'm going to cry with you too, because I feel sad too. And validating those feelings is really important. So tell me how you do that for your clients.
Well, first of all, what you just said is not just with family, but with clients.
Yeah.
So if somebody brings up something that causes tears to show up, back in the day when coaching started, there was a false bifurcation that, oh God, emotions, oh God, send them to a therapist.
Yes.
Right. But now it's like, it's called emotional intelligence.
Yes, I love it.
And beyond that, if you got the intelligence, it's got to be emotional learning. Daniel Goleman was actually somebody I knew back in the 70s when he was a long-haired hippie and president of the Association of Transpersonal Psychology. And then when he created emotional intelligence, all of a sudden corporations could say, oh, feelings and relationships are okay because emotional intelligence. So in coaching, we have to understand that under the surface, just under the surface of what our clients present, there's emotions attached to their transition that they're choosing, or a transition that's being forced upon them, or changes they want to make. And those emotions might be glee and excitement and passion.
Right.
They might be fear and anger and sadness and loss. And then stuff happens to us. I mean, I lost my wife 2.5 years ago unexpectedly, 3 weeks after we moved back to Colorado. A lot of my clients knew that. And after taking a time off, if they would say, how are you? I knew they really wanted to hear the answer.
Right.
So that's one of my tricks, is I let people know, if I say, how are you? I want to know the truth, not just, walk on down the hall. And then the other trick is the neuroscience that's out there today, connecting the brain, the heart, and the gut. You know about this.
Yep.
The heart has 40,000 neurites in it that connect with the brain more than the brain connects with the heart. So we now have science that shows all the Hindu and Buddhist and Native American traditions of the heart have a science to show why that was true. So I work with my clients on making sure we don't forget the somatic, the body intelligence that they have. What does your heart say right now about what you're struggling with?
Right.
You've got lots of thoughts, and we can talk about goals and objectives and outcomes, but what does your heart say?
Right.
And that's not so woogity boogity. That's right there under the surface.
So, I mean, I'm going to talk to you for like 6 hours, but no, because it's so true. And I think, how are you? I'm fine. It's always the response. But if people know who you are, or how you're coming from, or what your background is, or that you actually truly mean, how are you, or how are you feeling today, or any of that stuff. But I love the heart, comparison, because so many people like to live behind even if it's a sheer curtain, it's a curtain, right? Is not, I can't let anybody in, because vulnerability and strength and fear, right? I think fear is a huge thing for a lot of people to share their emotions. They'll look weak. They'll look, whatever.
And fear is the future. We don't know the future. That's what it's about.
Of course.
So men typically still have more problems than women sharing emotions and vulnerability, but all of us in our professional attire want to appear stronger than we are.
So how do you pull that out of your people?
Well, I'm doing a lot of workshops and webinars. Actually, I'm doing a lot of webinars now for ICF chapters on coaching's response to the COVID-19 thing. How are we taking care of ourselves? But my other workshops are called, I use a metaphor called getting naked with your clothes on.
Love it.
And I had to change the title of the program to Conscious Living Mastery, because if you go to Getting Naked with a website, sometimes you end up in the wrong places.
The wrong place, yeah.
Right. But it's that metaphor. It's that people feel that they're almost like naked. They're disrobing. And you don't do that everywhere. You only do that with certain people at the right time, right place, right time. It's the same as emotional sharing. Who can you trust? Hopefully a coach.
Right.
hopefully a spouse, maybe a really good friend. You only need a few. You only need a couple, actually.
Yes.
You don't want to share this stuff with a stranger. So if you're wearing a mask and you're aware of it, that's authenticity. If you're wearing a mask and you don't know it, you're living a falsehood. Does that make sense? I mean, if I go to a
Yes.
corporate meeting and I got to put on a mask, I know it. I'll go home and then, oh man, that was hard.
Yeah, yes. Like you have, right. It's like, you don't know. I mean, but at the same time, it's like, your audience is much different than a one-on-one coaching client or somebody who comes to you for, I need help and I'm ready to do this.
Right.
And I think that's another good conversation starter, right? It's like when people come to you, most people don't know how deep coaching goes, right? Most people think that, oh, it's a coach, they're going to help me like figure out my career or they're my life or whatever. But they don't realize the amount of work that goes into coaching and being a recipient of the coaching, right? So self-care is something that you've been talking about for even during this conversation with taking care of you. You haven't used the word self-care. Tell me why that is so important, especially for men. I want to pinpoint the men right now.
Oh boy. Well, I wrote an article after the Florida school shootings, or that 2-3 years ago, whatever that was, because I heard the boys interviewed on NPR saying, well, we all get this message, grow a pair, stand up, be a man, be real.
Right.
They're still getting that message.
Yes.
I was sad.
Yes.
It's like, come on, feelings are feelings. There's no bad ones. Some just feel bad. So that's one thing that men, more than women, need to learn, that emotions are just emotions.
Yeah.
And if you express them in the moment, they won't fester and grow and metastasize. They'll be expressed and the energy will shift. So in coaching, one of the key questions, and this is a really super secretive, powerful question, is when you say to the client, and is there anything else?
And then you stop.
Absolutely. Well, and what else about that? What is there anything you're not sharing? I mean, it's not like I'm delving. It's under the surface. Yeah. I use the analogy of snorkeling. If somebody who snorkels for the first time in their life, some people are scared. They go, oh my God, how does this work? And then you look under the surface, you go, oh man, what beauty. And then if you scuba dive, you go, what beauty and what fear, what little extra danger. We're not scuba diving in coaching. We're just snorkeling. And we're just helping the client look under the surface of what they don't know, because coaching is about learning what you don't know to create what it is you think you want or know you want or haven't created what you want. If that makes sense. I mean, it's like beyond that, I say, what else is there? And then I say, where in your body are you? Then you start getting to some energy that might bring up tears or laughter or excitement. Or does that make sense?
Yes. And so now when you say where in your body, because I also, I have friends who do Reiki. I'm a big fan. I love it. All that stuff, right? Because our bodies really are indicators of our feelings, right? Yes. My stomach hurts. There's a reason why your stomach hurts. It could be that you ate something bad, but a lot of the times it's a reaction to something else. Right. Stress, a relationship challenge, a work challenge, whatever, right? So being in tune with those messages from your body, it takes work to learn how to listen. Right. Right. So what would you say is something that you've learned, because now you've been doing this a long time, about how to listen to your heart and your gut and what your body is telling you when you're making an important, especially right now, right? We're all sitting here in our homes and the unknown is literally outside our door and we don't know when we're going to be able to open it. Right. So lots of fear, lots of energy, lots of mixed emotions going on. How do you tap into the feelings of your body to help you overcome these feelings of fear or to address these feelings? Yeah,
maybe not overcome, just
address them.
And find a place for them. So first of all, emotions are giving us messages. So if you can learn to say, and there's a process, we could have a longer discussion that I go through, like, okay, what are you challenged by? Where are you noticing that in your body? Breathe. How is your breathing? Step outside yourself and notice. So it's that one person remove. there's a technique from psychosynthesis called, disidentification, big word, but it means
Right.
I have a feeling, but I am not my feeling. I have a body, but I'm not my body. I have a fear, but I am not the fear. So you stand outside and say, oh, so that's interesting. I'm observing myself breathing constrictingly. I'm observing myself almost crying. I'm scared. I don't know what to do next. Okay, acknowledge it, learn from it. And then where in your body are you sensing that is important. But I also think I always come back to the heart.
Yeah.
I mean, the heart and the gut have neurocells in them as well. So what are they telling you besides the head talking thing?
Sure.
And, there's so much we learn about amygdala hijacking, right? When somebody reacts. Like I have this game, Barrel of Monkeys. Do your kids still have that?
We did have it. We don't have it now.
Little kid. I use this in my talks. It's like one monkey attaches to another one, attaches to another one. If you don't express a little bit of upset that your husband did, and then a little bit that your son did, and then a little bit that your boss did, and then somebody asks you for directions and you fly off a handle, all the monkeys come out.
Yes.
So learning where the emotions started and how can they be expressed so they'll just shift, they'll just dissipate. Susan David at Harvard calls that emotional agility, and
Yeah.
Brene Brown calls it courageous vulnerability. But
Yes.
once we express it, then it loses its power over us.
I think a lot of people don't know how to let it go. Right. So easy for us to say, because we've done it, right? Like I remember when I was going through 6 years ago, my own transformation, and I had to learn how to put myself first and prioritize my relationship with me, which is something I preach now because I know how important it is. But in the beginning, the hesitation was like, no, I'm looking outside and I don't like this. And so, okay, I acknowledge it, but how do you take that next step further to let it go? It's easy to say, just let it go, but how do you actually let it go?
Yeah. You can't just watch Frozen and the song "Let It Go," which is great, great advice.
Right.
But that's where the relationship with a coach or a trusted listener or a committed listener. I'm trying to remember the quote that, who was the woman that wrote the Secret Life of Bees or something?
That was a really great book.
I'm forgetting her name, but it'll come to me. But it's like, there's no pain in the world that doesn't deserve a committed witness. That we need to share with somebody, even if they don't try to fix us, just hear us. Just hear us, and that's where coaching becomes what many of us call the sacred space or the inspiring space. We're not there to fix the person. We're there to create that space where new awareness and new knowledge and new steps can take place. And it's not just, I'm going to exercise 3 days this week. I'm going to get a better leader. I'm going to practice my speech making skills. It's about the inner self.
Yep.
Who do you need to be to become what you're wanting to be?
Right.
That sounds pretty esoteric, but that's really what we're working in, really,
Yeah, it's 100% true, right? It's like a lot of times, I know when I'm working with my clients, I say, you're here for a reason, right? You looked in the mirror and you didn't like what was looking back at you. And it has nothing to do with aesthetics, right? I can remember looking in the mirror and saying, where did she go? Like, where did the girl who, has achieved all these things, no complaints, right? Had a wife and a mother and a great job and all the things. But this wasn't where I thought I was going to be. This isn't the person I didn't think I was going to be, a middle manager for a Fortune 10 company. I was going to live in New York City and, paint the town red and do all the things. And where did I lose that person? And I think a lot of us at some point in our lives look in the mirror and we say, I feel lost.
Yeah.
I don't feel like there's more to me than what is happening right now.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are afraid to explore that because it means vulnerability, right? It means, having to give up some control. I am a control freak. Asking for help was the hardest thing I ever had to do when I was going through my own personal stuff. But when I did it, and after I received it, it changed everything.
Yeah. Yeah, boy, what I think about there is the value of the coaching profession, especially for men. Again, it used to be that men didn't want to see a shrink because that they didn't want somebody to see their Jaguar parked out front of the office. They didn't want to know. Women were, oh yeah, I'll come in and share my story. 70% of therapy clients are women.
Yeah.
So, I think that's a little different for coaching clients, but that needs to change. That it needs to be a message that emotions are just emotions. Find one or two people that you can share with, and it doesn't mean you're broken. It just means you're human. Life happens, ages and stages. Unchosen change versus chosen change. If you choose to get married and you choose to move somewhere, that's chosen, and it's still stressful.
Right.
If you win the lottery, that's still stressful.
Right.
But if you get divorced, or you have a death, or you have a loss, or you have an illness, that's unchosen.
Right.
But eventually, it all has to be chosen.
Right.
Eventually, you choose what happened and say, now what?
Yes.
And coaching is really about the now what.
I love that. So tell us about your next moves, your new program. What do you have going on? Who are you focusing on helping right now in this moment? Because I know there are a lot of people out there who might want to know.
Yeah. Well, here's what I've developed, and I call it my living legacy because it's really based on my decades of working in personal development and all the stuff that I have just digested into me. So my program is called Conscious Living Mastery, and you've got it linked there, www.consciouslivingmastery.com. It's really a program online with some twice a month live meetings with me, live Q&As, for people to work on through a 12-module course, mostly therapists, coaches, consultants, or growth seekers, you could call it. But and then you can use it with your clients.
Yeah.
So it's about learning the power of self-disclosure, getting real. I use the Velveteen Rabbit approach from that book about getting real.
Yep.
Getting out of your own prison. How have we imprisoned ourselves while we turn around? Hey, we had the key all along. There's a lot of fun stories, but also some work and workshops. There's audios, videos, workbooks, etc. And it's geared to coaches to make sure, and therapists, to make sure their rough edges are smoothed out so they can become more present and authentic in the moment with their clients. We have to put our stuff aside. I almost said the other S word. We have to put our stuff aside. And if we need our own coach, our own supervision, understandably, but when you're with your clients, how can you just be present? Yeah. Put your life aside and then share authentically what's important. If you say, oh man, I went through that in my life too. You don't have to share your whole story,
right?
But just normalize it.
Right. I think relatability is very important.
Yes. Yeah.
If you have a story that you can relate to your client, that makes your bond stronger, because it's like, oh, this guy knows what I'm going through. Right. This person knows what this feels like, and it doesn't feel good, right? A lot of the feel word is a big word for us.
Yes.
But I love that. And I love that you're doing it and you're gearing it toward coaches and therapists, because I am a lifelong learner, right? So I'm constantly coaching and being coached, and have friends and we back and forth all the time, mentor calls and whatever.
Yes.
But I think that most people don't know the value of it, right? And especially coaches and therapists who, once we get certified, we think, okay, I'm good to go, right?
Yeah.
But we're not, because we're constantly learning and changing and growing and moving through moments in time that are unexpected or expected. Right. So thank you for that, because that is a really important thing. And I'm going to share that with all of my coaching friends, because it's a great tool to have.
Yeah, we don't want to be caught up in the imposter syndrome. Like somebody, who am I to coach somebody? Well, you are a loving human being who's been trained in coaching, and you have life happening to you too. So what are you doing about the life happening to you too to help you be available? You're not teaching people how to live their life. You're creating presence for them to discover what it is they want and need. And I don't even use the word like, how do you feel? I say, how are you experiencing this moment? Because that's more general.
Yeah.
It can be a lot more than just feeling.
Yeah.
But emotions, somatic expectations, what are you sensing? All of that goes into coaching, and that's not a conversation you used to have at Starbucks when we used to go there. You know,
We used to.
A good friend can be a good friend, but a coach is somebody who asks, and what else? And what's underneath that? And
I love it. Our time, sadly, is up, my friend. You don't go anywhere. Audience, this man is a wealth of knowledge and experience. And if you are a coach, if you are a therapist, if you are somebody who just wants to know more about Dr. Pat Williams, because you should, all of his links are in here. Go get one of his books. Go do one of his courses. He's got tons of them all over the place because he really does know his stuff. And he is a valuable, valuable asset to this world, and not only, you know, just to the coaching industry. So we thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Thank you.
You stay there. Everybody else, I hope you're staying safe. I hope you are social distancing. I hope you're wearing your masks and you're doing all the things you're supposed to be doing to keep everybody else safe, because that's just as important. And it is respectful of your neighbors. So be respectful of your neighbors. We love you guys, and we will see you back here next Friday with a brand new guest. Have a great weekend. You stay right there. I'm going to hit the stop button.